we are hoping to have a baby this year. And so this video, we are going to be talking about infertility, IVF, and our journey to have another child. Hi, I'm Joseph.
And I'm Tasha, and this is One Big Happy Life, where we make videos about how to find balance, build wealth, and live happy. So if you are all about creating the life that you want on your own terms, then we make videos just for you. So be sure to subscribe and tune in.
So if you're new to the channel or you just need a little bit of a refresher, Tasha and I have had a long journey in having our children. And this year is probably the final chapter to that journey where we're hoping to have another child. And because we struggled with some infertility in the past, we have sought treatment now. And hopefully by the end of the year, we will be pregnant.
And so our goal is to chronicle the whole IVF journey. We've never done IVF before, so this will be our first time doing it. And based on, we've posted things about it on Instagram. And by the way, if you aren't following us on Instagram, you definitely should be, because there's always this delay with the YouTube videos, whereas Instagram is like instant, right? You can watch our stories, you can see what's going on in real time. So head on over to Instagram and follow us there at One Big Happy Life. But because we've been talking about this on Instagram, we know that so many of you guys who are following us over there are either going through the same thing, getting ready to go through the same thing. So we wanted to make sure that we chronicled the journey and gave you guys as much information as possible, and so that you can watch us go through it.
And so this will be a series on YouTube, and we'll create its own playlist. And so you can follow along for this entire IVF process and how that goes. And so let's go ahead and get started with kind of the history of how we got here. So way back in Texas, we knew that we wanted to have more children. So we had Alexis already. And we had been trying for more than a year, which is kind of the regular definition of infertility. And so we went to a doctor and got the initial tests. And so one of them was like just okay for me. And so they put me on some drugs. We did 2 rounds of IUI in Texas. And then we ended up moving before we got to the IVF process, did another round of IUI in Philadelphia. And we were like, well, that didn't work either. So we're gearing up for IVF, making plans. And we actually decided that we needed to move somewhere that had insurance that would cover IVF. And so we're talking major life changes. Yeah. Found someplace and got new jobs. Everything's signed. Paperwork's ready. Like, we're going to move and then do IVF. And then Tasha got pregnant.
Just randomly, naturally, after 3 years of trying. And we did actually get pregnant one time before at about 18 months in, but we ended up having a miscarriage. And we told the longer version of this story, like that was the Cliff Notes version. So we did a video about that. We'll drop that in the description box if you haven't seen that and you want a longer description of like going through all of that and us getting pregnant with Reeves and what it was like being pregnant with Reeves and finally conceiving after having miscarried. Well, you can definitely check that out. But yes, so that's the background. So let's talk about where we are now. So we had Reeves 3 years ago, and we have not used any protection, and we weren't actively trying for the first 2 years, but like not preventing either, and we haven't gotten pregnant. And then we decided that we did want to start actively trying, and we haven't gotten pregnant. So finally, December, we decided to reach out to a really popular IVF clinic near us, and we started with them and just had such a bad experience. They were just super unresponsive and just
on two sides of things. So of course, IVF is such a big deal with in terms of the steps and all the different costs. And so it's really important that you have a contact at the place that you're using to be able to talk you through all of that. And so we had problems getting in touch with the person to talk to us about the money side of things, but also the tests and the initial stuff that we had done.
Yeah, it's been 3 months since we first contacted them, and we still haven't been able to get everything straightened out with them. So that was really frustrating. And so then that left us scrambling, like, well, where are we going to go? And so we did some more research on the internet, and we found another place, and it's pretty far away. So it's a bit of a hike, but we said, well, let's check this place out. And so we met with the doctor a couple weeks ago, and she was amazing, just like night and day. I mean, not that the doctor at the other place was bad, but it's just when you meet a provider that you can tell really, really cares, loves what they do, really cares about who you are as people and as a couple, and making sure that you feel comfortable with the whole process, it just makes you feel so much better.
And I think part of it was also her personality just really vibed with us. And like she has a very similar sense of humor to me. And so it was just perfect. It's like, so I was already a little bit nervous going into the whole situation. And it's like, okay, well, this is at least one thing that I'm not worrying about. At least the provider is somebody that seems good to me. So
yeah, so that's where we met with her. We did have some blood work done with the previous provider, and so we're transferring that over. But so here's what the process is going to look like for us and, for you guys, because you're going to see it going forward. So we had our initial consult with her. And now this first cycle, like this first period cycle, because like I just had my cycle, you guys, we're gonna get like real familiar with each other in this thing. But so in this cycle, it starts at the beginning of a cycle where you have to get tests done right after your period starts. So like within the first 3 days, you get blood work done so that they can test your ovarian reserve. I already did that last year with the previous provider. So I know that my ovarian reserve is actually really high. The hormone that they look for, I think it's AMH. I don't remember off the top of my head. I should have looked this up.
that sounds right.
But they want to see 1.5 as at a minimum, like that way they know things are at least okay. And so mine is a 4. So it's very strong egg game going on here. So we did that, and then the next steps would be for Joseph to have a semen analysis, and then I need 3 ultrasounds, and the 3 ultrasounds need to happen between day 4 and day 10 of my cycle. So that's where we are right now. So next week I have to go get 3 ultrasounds on 3 different days.
That's a lot of ultrasounds. And then also, when I go in for my initial thing, I think we're actually going to freeze the sample if it's okay, because in a couple of months, I need to have surgery. And so the way that men work, you're constantly producing new sperm, but they last about, I think the cycle 76 days or something like that. And so they're in there for 2.5 months. And so whatever drugs or alcohol and caffeine, whatever it is, they're affecting your supply for that long. And so just in case, anesthesia is a strong drug, so they don't want a sample that's been tainted by anesthesia. And so we're probably going to freeze it, and then I can have surgery, and then it'll be fine.
So the goal, though, is to do the transfer before Joseph has surgery. But let's backtrack a little bit and just talk about kind of what the process is going to be. So we do our testing, freeze the sperm. We meet back up with our doctor, and then she'll have all of the information that she needs to decide what's the best course of action in terms of what kinds of drugs in what amount she needs to prescribe to me in order to do the egg retrieval. So then that will take basically this whole cycle. So I'll ovulate, and then, if we don't get pregnant naturally, then I will have a period. And when I start my period, I will start birth control. And for a whole cycle, I will be on birth control. And then I'll go off birth control, have another period. And by then I'll start injecting myself with things to make my ovaries produce a whole bunch of eggs. When that happens, during that time, I'll be monitored continuously, like every other day by the doctor. She's going to make sure that everything is going along smoothly, that I'm not producing too many eggs, that I'm not having any adverse reactions. And then when the time comes and there are enough eggs that are big enough and ready to be ovulated, I'll do a trigger shot. And then a couple days later, we will go to the surgical center, and I will get put under, and they will retrieve the eggs.
Yeah, so she's obviously having some surgery too.
Yeah.
But it's really serious. Like, we're kind of thinking, oh, it's not going to be this big a deal. But no, it's legitimate surgery.
And I've never been put under before, so I'm a little nervous about that. Like, I am someone that does not even like to take painkillers when I have a headache, when I had my wisdom teeth out, when I had my my tooth extracted, even when I had the post put in. I really try hard not to take painkillers, and so it's really, it's a little nerve-wracking to like the thought of being put under. But so that's going to happen.
Yeah, and she's also going to be doing those shots. It's not that I have a problem with shots, but I can't like put a shot in somebody else.
Well,
she had to do her trigger shot for the IUI.
Yeah, so I did my own shots for IUI, so I'm not super worried about that. It didn't hurt at all, so I think it'll be fine. But then after that, then there'll be eggs, and they will take Joseph's sperm sample, and hopefully it'll be a fresh sample too. It's good to have that backup. And then they will artificially inject the sperm into the eggs. That's ICSI. And then after that, I think we're still kind of going back and forth about this, but most likely we will do PGS testing, which will test to make sure that the embryos are chromosomally normal. So they have the correct number of chromosomes, because the older you get, so by the time you're, 37, which I'll be 37 this year, 37, 38, 50% of the eggs that you produce are actually chromosomally abnormal. And so what that does is it leads to miscarriage, or it might lead to birthing a child that has, some disabilities.
Yeah, and so if we can avoid that easily, then it increases the odds that you're going to have a viable pregnancy, and then have a baby that doesn't have any of those genetic disorders. And so that's the ideal scenario.
What we haven't decided yet is whether we're willing to take it a step further and test both of us to see if we're carriers for any particular genetic disorders, and if we want to screen the embryos for that. We haven't decided that yet. We're just not there yet.
Yeah, and it's really cool that they have the technology that can go in and really figure that stuff out, and can protect your kids against potentially a whole host of different genetic disorders. And fortunately, our families don't have a history of anything that's really bad. And so that's why we're kind of on the fence. It's like, well, it could happen, but we think that the odds aren't that high.
And so most likely, though, we will not have a fresh cycle, meaning that when the eggs are retrieved and fertilized, we're not going to have an egg put in immediately. Or embryo, I should say, because they'd be embryos at that point. The embryos will be frozen. And there are benefits to doing it that way, because it allows all of the hormones that were pumped into my system to cause me to hyperovulate. It will cause all of those will get washed away in that between cycle. And it also gives the uterine lining a chance to thicken up again. So that puts us at 3 months out, because then obviously I'll have another period. And then on the next cycle, they will defrost an embryo and implant it, and then hopefully that will lead to a positive pregnancy test.
Yeah, fingers crossed that will be the only one.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it's viable, she's actually pregnant, then they kind of pass us off to the OB, and then 9 months later we have a baby.
And so our goal is to take you through all of this stuff with us over the next 3 months. That's like such a long time. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, so everything, up to the minute is going to be on Instagram. And then every so often, I think, 5 or 6 YouTube videos over the whole process, going over the testing, the retrievals, the implantation.
The prices.
Oh, and yes, we will definitely cover all the costs that we see, and also whatever other information that we have, just so you can kind of know if you're in that boat or just curious how much it's going to be.
So if you guys have any questions about that, any of this, go ahead and drop them down below, and we'll either answer them here, or I think one of the things that we're taking to doing is answering questions over on our Instagram, because sometimes we've been talking about how busy we are. We're already super busy with our jobs and with YouTube and all of that. And so we thought that we would have this vlog channel where we could do things more real time, but we cannot edit any more videos than we're already doing. And so it's really easy for us, though, to just pick up Instagram and just do a quick Instagram story to answer questions and do things live. Whereas if we wait for YouTube, then it might be 3 or 4 weeks before we can get a video out that covers that whole topic. So head on over to Instagram, and that's where like all the like in the moment stuff is happening.
All right. So we hope you enjoyed the video. Let us know in the comments any questions that you have, or if you too are going through this kind of thing, let us know. Let us know what you're up to, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.